How to plant Photinia. There are many separate species within the broad Photinia genus, but most share similar planting requirements. These evergreen shrubs can be started from cuttings or prepared seedlings, but either way, they are fairly easy to care for. Part 1 Propagation. 1. Fill a container with cuttings compost. Fill a shallow tray with 1 part free, draining potting compost and 1 part sand or perlite. Mix well until both materials are evenly distributed. Note that this process should be done in either the summer or autumn. The container you use should be approximately 3 to 4 inches, 7.6 to 10 centimeters, deep. 2. Cut beneath an established node. Using a sharp, clean knife, trim just beneath the node of an established Photinia shrub. The cutting you take should be between 2 and 4 inches, 5 and 10 centimeters, long. Growth hormones are concentrated in the space just beneath a node, so taking the cutting from that point will help stimulate root production. Pinch off the soft tip and remove any lower leaves from the cutting. 3. Place the cutting in the compost. Poke a hole in the compost using your finger or a clean chopstick. Insert the bottom third of the cutting into that hole. Photinia cuttings tend to root well without the use of hormone treatment, but if desired, you can coat the exposed bottom of the cutting with a hormone powder before planting it. If rooting more than one cutting, space each cutting 2 to 4 inches, 5 to 10 centimeters, apart. 4. Water well. Apply enough water to the compost to thoroughly moisten it. Allow any excess water to drain. In addition to feeding the cuttings, the water will help settle the compost and prevent the cuttings from shifting around too much. 5. Keep the cuttings warm. Cover the cuttings with plastic bags and place them in a warm location. They should receive plenty of indirect sunlight as well. Remove the bag twice a week for 10 minutes to help ventilate the cuttings and prevent fungi from growing. Another option would be to place the container in a closed propagator case that provides steady bottom heat between 64 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 and 24 degrees Celsius. 6. Monitor the cuttings as they establish themselves. The cuttings should take root within 6 to 10 weeks. During this time, the compost must remain warm and moist. You may need to mist it with a spray bottle every few days. Apply water directly to the soil and not to the cutting itself. Any dead, dying, or diseased plant matter should be discarded at least once a week during this process. 7. Separate individual cuttings after roots develop. After roots develop, you should place each cutting in its own pot. Allow the cuttings to continue growing for another 2 weeks in this manner. Fill the individual containers with the same cutting compost, 1 part free, draining compost, 1 part sand or perlite. These containers should be about twice as deep as your initial cuttings tray. Cover the cuttings with plastic bags again, but remove the plastic bags for 10 to 30 minutes each day. Doing so will help harden the cuttings, making them durable enough to transplant. Part 2 Transplanting. 1. Transplant during dormancy. Seedlings and rooted cuttings are typically transplanted during the early to mid-spring, after the threat of frost has passed. If you started your cuttings early in the summer, though, they might be ready to transplant by mid-autumn. Even so, you should only transplant cuttings in autumn if the soil is still warm and the threat of frost is still 2 or more weeks away. 2. Choose a sunny location. Photinia should be planted in an area that receives full sun to partial shade. You can grow Photinia in areas of full shade, but the shrub will yield fewer flowers and will be more susceptible to leaf spot and other fungi. If you live in USDA Zone 6, you will need to choose a growing site that sits on the southern or western side of a building. The structure can help protect Photinia from harsh winter winds that could otherwise kill the plant. 3. Amend the soil as needed. These shrubs will grow best in soil that is fertile and well draining. This may mean that you will need to amend the soil before planting any seedlings. If you have clay soil or other poorly drained soil, you should mix in few handfuls of rotted compost or manure before transplanting your seedling. Coarse agricultural sand can be used to improve soil drainage as well. The soil should also be neutral to mildly acidic, with a pH range between 3.7 and 7.3. If the soil is too alkaline, you may need to add agricultural lime, hardwood ash, manure, or potassium carbonate to help drop the pH. Mix any soil amendments into the soil at a depth between 6 and 12 inches, 15 and 30 centimeters. 4. Dig a deep enough hole. Use a trowel or small shovel to dig a hole that roughly matches the depth of the seedling's current container. The hole should also be about twice as wide in diameter as the current container. 5. Place the seedling in the hole. Carefully remove the seedling from its current container and place it in the center of the planting hole. Fill the hole with soil, patting the soil firmly into place with your hands or the back of your trowel. To remove the seedling, carefully tip the current container onto its side and attempt to slide the seedling out. If the container is made from flimsy plastic, you can squeeze the sides to help coax the plant out. Otherwise, slide your trowel along one inner side of the container and use the leverage to help lift the plant out from beneath its root mass. 6. Space separate seedlings far apart. Photinia plants need plenty of circulation to thrive. For most varieties, separate Photinia shrubs should be planted 15 feet, 5 meters, apart. Crowded Photinia do not receive enough air circulation. When these shrubs lack proper circulation, they can quickly become victims of leaf spot and other fungi. 7. Water well. Once all of your Photinia shrubs have been planted in your garden, water the soil at the base of each plant using a watering can or garden hose. The soil should be notably damp after you water it. You won't need to apply as much water later on, but this initial heavy dose gives each plant the boost it needs to survive the transplanting process. The water also helps settle the soil. Part 3 Care. 1. Water the root zone. When watering your Photinia shrub, use a watering can to apply water directly to the soil. Do not allow any water to get on the leaves, flowers, berries, or stems. Wet leaves are more likely to become infected with leaf spot or other fungal diseases. Photinia do best when watered regularly, but established shrubs can tolerate mild drought. As a general rule, make sure that each Photinia plant receives at least 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters, of water on a weekly basis. Provide more or less water as needed depending on the health of your plant. Yellowing leaves usually indicate an over-watered plant. Wilted leaves can indicate an under-watered plant. 2. Feed with a general-purpose fertilizer. Apply a balanced fertilizer in the spring to encourage new growth. A balanced fertilizer contains equal parts nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Do not fertilize Photinia in the summer. Doing so can promote new growth late in the season. New growth that appears later in the season will be weaker against disease and frost. The exact amount of fertilizer needed will vary on the type and brand you choose, so follow the label instructions to determine the proper dosage. Usually, you should apply fertilizer in the early morning or evening after watering the plant. 3. Prune during dormancy. Yearly pruning is vital since good air circulation is required for the long-term health of the plant. Prune once at the beginning of winter and once more at the start of spring. Avoid pruning the plant during the active growing season. New growth is weaker and more likely to fall victim to leaf spot and other diseases. In the winter, remove any diseased, damaged, or dead wood. Look for crowded areas and remove the weakest and most poorly positioned branches within those areas. Thinning the plant out improves air circulation and reduces the risk of disease. In the spring, do some light pruning after the red growth begins to fade to encourage new growth. Remove the tips of new shoots as they first appear, cutting them just above an outward-facing bud. Remove any infected plant material or fallen leaves as soon as you spot them. Do not wait until a winter or spring pruning to do so. 4. Protect the plant with mulch. Spread approximately 2 inches, 5 centimeters, of organic mulch around the bottom of the Photinia plant. Do this once in early to mid-spring and once more in late autumn. Always rake away any old mulch and debris before applying new mulch. Autumn mulch protects the plant against frost and other winter injury. Spring mulch keeps the soil adequately moist and minimizes potential weed problems. 5. Watch out for fungal diseases and other problems. Entomosporium leaf spot is the most common problem faced by Photinia plants. As soon as you see early signs of leaf spot, you should treat the shrub with an appropriate fungicide. Entomosporium leaf spot can be identified in its early stages by a splattering of small red spots over the upper and lower surfaces of new leaves. These spots gradually spread and deepen in color as the disease progresses. Choose a fungicide labeled for use against leaf spot. Formulas containing chlorothalonil, propiconazole, or myclobutanil are usually best. Photinia plants are weak against several other diseases, too. These include mildew, leaf spots, and fire blight. Scale insects can also cause problems. Each of these issues should be treated with an appropriate fungicide or pesticide as soon as they are noticed. Apply your chosen fungicide or pesticide directly to diseased areas and new growth. Apply every 7 to 14 days until the problem disappears. Never apply fungicides and pesticides during hot, dry weather. For best results, apply the chemical in the early morning, before the heat of the afternoon sets in, or in the evening. Tips. Instead of propagating Photinia from cuttings, you could save time and effort by purchasing an established Photinia seedling or shrub from a garden nursery. Transplant these seedlings and shrubs in the same way you would transplant rooted cuttings grown at home. Photinia can survive in USDA Zone 6 through 9. Things. Shallow tray for cuttings. Free, draining potting compost. Sand or perlite. Sharp, clean knife. Watering can. Spray bottle. Plastic bags or closed propagator. Small pots. Shovel or trowel. Balanced fertilizer. Pruning shears. Mulch. Fungicide as needed. Pesticide as needed.